All right, if you love the nitty-gritty details of real estate, we are going to go behind the scenes today. You are going to see me review an offer. I'm going to walk you through everything. So this is probably good for the public if you're just curious, and also for newer real estate agents. If you are a seasoned real estate agent, I do believe we all have something to learn from each other because we all think differently, operate differently, have learned different skills over the years. So hopefully you learned something from this. Anyway. All right, so this is going to be an Arizona real estate contract. The seller that I have is selling a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom, top floor corner unit in the Biltmore area at 32nd and Camelback in Phoenix, Arizona. We have it listed for $350,000, and we listed it Saturday at noon, and I received the offer Monday morning before 8 a.m. If I hadn't gone to bed so early last night, they probably would have sent it over last night. So we only had 2 showings yesterday, which was Sunday, and we procured an offer from one of those showings. The caveat to this specific situation is that the buyer is also a real estate agent. So I haven't looked at the offer, but that will impact the seller compensation addendum. So what I'm going to review with you is the purchase contract, the seller compensation agreement, or addendum, and then the HOA addendum. Each of those have variables that need to be negotiated upon. And what I do is I have my little list here with everything between price and terms that I'm going to need to pay attention to. So I have been burned in the past twice. You would think I've learned my lesson. Thankfully not recently, but at 2 separate times in the beginning of my career, I was so excited to receive offers on my listings that I completely looked past the seller concessions line, and both happened to be offers that were asking for 3%, and that was my commission. And obviously I didn't notice it in the beginning. I was new, and the seller did not catch it when they were reviewing the contract. So we got to the closing table. They were very upset with me. A little too late to fire me. So I ended up donating my entire commission. So those are 2 very big lessons to learn. I hope you never have to do that and can remember to always check that line. So that is something that I write down on my list because it is not something I ever want to miss. So I'm looking at this for the first time, and I'm just going to start going through it one by one. Might be some pauses in here. All right. So purchase contract. The purchase price is $322,000. Now, earnest money is $5,000. Earnest money is a big deal. There are times that sellers do counter with a higher earnest money amount. I want to say it's rare, but it does happen. So if you are representing a buyer and you're watching this, make sure that you give enough. I mean, typically the rule on something under $1 million is 1%. So if it's $300,000, it's $3,000. And if it's $600,000, it's $6,000, right? It's typically 1%. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. And so in this case, they're going above and beyond because it's $5,000 instead of $3,000. This is a cash deal. They want to close on June 5th. So that is 1 month, which typically for a cash deal, it doesn't take a full month or 30 days. So I'm not really sure why they want that. That would be a good question to ask. I also have to remember that I'm not trying to create problems in places that my client, the seller in this case, doesn't see as a problem. If they don't have a problem with 30 days, then what's the matter, right? That's like, if you're the real estate agent watching this, this is where you really need to decipher, like, don't be too smart, don't get in your own way. If they ask, is this normal for a cash deal, then that's when you would disclose. All right, so Addenda Incorporated, we have HOA and seller compensation. The personal property included is refrigerator, washer, dryer. It always blows my mind in the Arizona real estate contract why on line 61 and 62, no one ever fills out microwave, dishwasher, some part of the oven and stove, whether it's a range or whatever. It always blows my mind. That's not in here, but obviously the seller is leaving those. They're not moving anything out. The financing section is cash, so we completely skipped that altogether. Now for appraisal cost, this is actually checked, which usually for a cash offer is not checked, but it does say buyer. Seller concessions is also in this, and it does not have anything here because this has to do with a loan, and they're not getting a loan. Title, they gave us our company. Win, we love that. So the other thing I do when I'm going through this is I write down the corrections that need to be done. So I will say line 181, initials to be removed. They accidentally, which I don't think it was them, I think it was transaction desk. In the Arizona contract, it's like for lead-based paint, you have 1978 if it was constructed before and 1978 if it was constructed after. And there's two sets of initials, one for each. And transaction desk auto-populates both because it doesn't know which. So you, excuse me. So you as the real estate agent have to go in and manually delete them. Oftentimes it doesn't always delete, so I don't think that's their fault, but I still have to clean it up. An inspection period, the contract is 10 days automatically. They did not fill anything in, so it will be a 10-day inspection period. And home warranty, the buyer declines. They are not asking for a home warranty, for the seller to pay for a home warranty. So because the one or more of the buyers are real estate agents, it does have to be disclosed in here. And then it also says all personal furniture and contents will be included in the purchase price. Okay, so they want furniture included. The listing specifically says that the furniture is available on a separate bill of sale. I did talk about a specific number with them. They spent about $15,000 to furnish this place, from everything, every little fork in the kitchen to the whole bed set, everything. So they came to the number of $7,500. I also prepared the seller to be ready to move the furniture out if we find a buyer that doesn't want the furniture. Not everybody wants it, but I do think if it's furnished, it's smart to just offer it and see if anybody takes it, if it's less work for you as the seller. All right, we're through the purchase contract. And then response time is May 5th at 1 p.m. So that's tomorrow. All right. The seller compensation. They are asking for 0%. And why they did that is because in lieu of a seller compensation, they are taking the commission price and they are reducing it from the total purchase price. If you don't know this trick, this is what you should do when you are buying your own properties if you are a real estate agent, because this way you don't have to pay tax. So sellers, sellers, I think, get a little bit sad when this happens because in their head, it looks less on paper. So now, if they think that they're asking $350,000 and then it goes down to $322, that feels like a lot. But when you build it back in, let's see. So they told me it was off of $332,000. So 9960. So then you take 332 minus 9960, 322.40. So 322. So in reality, the offer is $332,000, but on paper it looks like a lot less and it feels like a lot less because it is $10,000 less, but you would be paying that as the seller anyway. So it all washes out the same in the end. It's just how it's written down on paper. Now, for the HOA addendum, we have 2 places on page 3. Sorry, 3 places on page 3. So we have the transfer fee. They have to be paid by the seller, capital improvement fee to be paid by the seller, and any additional fees not disclosed on page 1 and payable upon close of escrow shall be paid by seller. So HOA. So we have seller, seller, seller. Typically, for majority of my career, transfer fee and capital improvement fees have always been split 50-50. When it was 2020, 2021, and buyers wanted to buy the house for any number and would pay anything, that's when the buyer took those fees on because they didn't care. They just wanted the house. But now that we're back into a place where it's a little more buyer friendly, the sellers have a little less negotiating room, but I would still suggest that we go back and counter with 50-50, 50-50 for the transfer fees and capital improvement fees. I do believe, this is my personal opinion, that any fees not disclosed and any outstanding liens, I have had sellers who I receive a settlement statement and there's a huge chunk in the HOA and I call the title girl. I'm like, what is going on? Why is this here? And she's like, well, they're like past due like 6 months. Oh, that shouldn't be passed on to the buyer. That should be the seller's responsibility. It is now a box that can be checked, but I've never seen anybody check buyer. So that will be one counter. HOA addendum, transfer fee, capital improvement fee, we're going to go back at 50-50. The transfer fee is actually $0, so it doesn't matter, but that can change at any point. I don't know if you've ever had a transaction where you start one way and halfway through something pops up like a fee, like a little fee or something, and it wasn't there, and then you have to renegotiate that. It's a whole thing. So hopefully that doesn't happen to you, but we have to, even though it's $0, we still have to check who pays it just in case something changes. The seller compensation is 0%. That's fine because it's being backed out of the purchase price. So now that we know that the price is really $332 with 3% commission, plus all of the furniture. Now that I have reviewed the offer and I'm fully equipped to talk to the seller, I will send them a text, let them know we have the offer in hand, set up a time to chat with them today, and you know that they're going to be asking me, what do I think? I think that we are just under, 46 hours on the market? So we're just under 2 days being on the market, and we haven't really had a full weekend because we didn't have the prep time. Typically, sellers like to list on Thursdays because it's close enough to the weekend, unlike Wednesday where it will get forgotten about, but far enough away from the weekend, unlike Friday where people will prepare and build that open house or build that showing into the weekend. Because we listed on Saturday at noon, we really kind of only had Sunday because if people are busy, they're out of town, they have plans. So we haven't really been through a full weekend. Now, as you know, I do always say this, typically the first offer is the best offer. But when a buyer submits an offer, they are always expecting a counter offer or else they would have offered full price because they didn't want anybody else to swoop it. So with that being said, we can either counter this back, include the furniture, and say, listen, we've been on the market for less than 48 hours at this point. We want $345, $347, $350. In case you don't know, you can counter back at full price. That is a thing. Otherwise, we can pull it into 2 separate pieces like we originally discussed, meaning myself and the sellers, which is the unit will be one purchase price and the bill of sale will be a separate purchase price. Sometimes it's easier for people to see it on paper when it's 2 separate things versus having it all wrapped and rolled into one. And on the other hand, you know, the seller could say, no, I want $350 and $7,500 for the furniture. Or they could say, wow, we weren't really expecting to get this high, accept it, right? And that's where I have to come in and have a conversation with myself. Like I said, buyers are expecting a counter offer, so I would like them to counter higher, knowing that the buyer will typically move at least a little bit up. I don't want them to leave that money on the table. But at the same time, when somebody is gung-ho and ready to just accept it, who am I to split hairs? You know, I'm creating a problem where one doesn't exist. If they're happy with the purchase price, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. So I will throw it out there and say, are you sure you don't want to come back at 337, 340? And if they're like, well, then what? You know, like, then we're going to go back and forth. And what if we lose them? I mean, it's a total gamble. If you like gambling, real estate is for you, right? So this is my process. I sit down, I review it all, I take the notes, I come up with the solutions, and then I present it to the seller. So this is obviously not completed. I will make a follow-up video to let you know where we stand. But I wanted to share this with you. And I'm also curious, if you are a real estate agent watching this, how do you deal with buyer agents? I know this is a little bit of a unique buyer, and it really doesn't happen often. So I'm actually kind of happy that it happened today when I decided to film this, because it just gives you guys a little bit more of an in-depth look